I've had periodic indigestion pains, at least what I thought were indigestion pains.
Was this more like a pain or more of a bad discomfort?
A bad discomfort, possibly.
This man thought he had an upset stomach. In fact, he had a duodenal ulcer. He went to a chemist and started treating himself with aspirin and Alka-Seltzer. He kept on doing this for 6 months. He lost 4 pints of blood, collapsed, and only an emergency blood transfusion saved him from death.
I was of the opinion that I was suffering from indigestion for some considerable period of time, and I'd been taking Alka-Seltzers and occasional aspirins to try and relieve the condition.
Say over the past 6 months, how many Alka-Seltzers have you been taking a week?
It may have possibly averaged 10 or 12 a week.
This patient's duodenal ulcer showed quite clearly on his x-rays. Nearly every doctor would say that to treat an ulcer with aspirin or even Alka-Seltzer, which contains aspirin, is a risky thing to do.
The cat looks all right now.
There are many cases similar to this every year. They raise the question, is aspirin, the most widely used drug in the world, as safe as we all think?
Painkillers, made to overcome the pains and nervous headaches of everyday life.
Advertisements encourage the public to treat themselves for minor ailments. If we had to go to doctors for drugs to cope with every little ache or pain, the strain on our health service might cause it to collapse.
You can trust aspirin.
But all effective drugs have dangers as well as benefits. When doctors prescribe them for us, they try to balance good effects against possible bad effects.
Many doctors have changed their prescribing and now choose more than...
When the public buy drugs advertised for sale over the counter, they're prescribing a course of treatment for themselves. Like doctors, they need to know the possible dangers of any drug they're buying, as well as its benefits.
Take Beecham's powders. Feel better fast.
Advertisements provide information about the benefits of drugs.
For your headaches, take Aspro. Pain relief, pure and simple.
Tonight, Weldon Action looks at home remedies and provides some balancing information about the possible dangers of one of them, the drug used more often than any other in self-treatment, aspirin.
Professor Alistair G. McGregor is a practicing hospital doctor and one of Britain's foremost medical authorities. As a member of a number of government committees who advise the Ministry of Health, he's not normally concerned with drugs which are sold direct to the public. However, in this programme, he'll present and comment on our findings.
The first thing which must be emphasised is that aspirin is an extremely valuable drug. It's basically a painkiller, an analgesic as doctors call it. And in fact, doctors find it so valuable that they prescribe over 300 million tablets a year. It's most useful in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis, for occasional headache, for muscle aches, for toothache, and to bring down your temperature and occasional attack of flu. Even so, however safe, every drug can have possible harmful side effects. That is why I hope this program will help to persuade people who are taking the drug regularly, without medical supervision, for a long time, to stop doing so.
Weldon Action decided to find out how many people might be misusing aspirin in this way.
We filmed a preliminary survey in Edinburgh and discovered alarming indications that there could be many thousands of people in Britain using large amounts of aspirin every day without good medical reason.
We sent a team of 15 researchers to look at 3 socially different areas. The first was the Royal Mile in the centre of the city. Here a variety of people live in flats like these, above shops catering mostly for tourists. We knocked on 240 doors and found 4 people using aspirin on their own advice.
Jim Cowan was one of them. He says he takes 8 aspirins every day and has done so for many years. He takes them for bad headaches and because he says he suffers from blood pressure.
How do you know you've got blood pressure?
Well, I mean, the doctor said I had blood pressure, actually.
Did he give you anything for it at all?
Oh, he just used to give me kind of pills, you know. I usually just take aspirins.
So you took aspirin in preference to taking the pills the doctor gave you?
That's correct, yes.
And you think that's doing your blood pressure good?
Oh, definitely. Definitely does.
The second area we chose was the middle-class estate of Broomhall. Here we called at 100 homes and found 3 people consuming large amounts of aspirin every day.
Mrs. McIntosh lives in this district. Her husband is a bakery supervisor. Mrs. McIntosh has been taking 12 Disprin tablets a day for many years because she suffers from bad headaches.
Do you think you should treat yourself for a headache rather than going to a doctor?
No,
No, I don't think I should, but I do.
What do you think should happen ideally?
Well, I think I should have my eyes tested for one thing, you know, because I do feel this is where the headaches are coming from. But nobody has ever suggested that, so I'm got the nerve to say it myself.
Haven't you?
No, I don't like to, no.
The final area was Pilton, a post-war slum district of council houses. Here we looked at one block of 60 houses and found 3 people swallowing assorted aspirin pills and powders every day.
Mrs. Moran works as a conductress and takes a daily ration of 4 Beecham's powders, which is equivalent to 6 aspirin tablets. She takes them, she says, to stop herself from catching colds.
Well, I mean, the kind of job I'm working in, I mean, you can't just risk anything, can you? I mean, you do get drafts.
And you think that Beecham's powders stop you from getting colds?
They do, yes.
Have you had a cold recently?
Yes, I have.
Well, if you take Beecham's powders all the time and they stop you from getting colds, how could you get a cold?
Oh, well, you see, I mean, you're in drafts of buses. I mean, you can take anything. I mean, you're in passengers. I mean, they all come on with colds. I mean, you've got to catch something off them, haven't you?
When you go to the doctor and get things from him, do you find that they work as well as Beecham's powders?
No.
You mean you use Beecham's powders instead of things the doctor gives you?
I mean, I've got stuff in the house. I mean, I would rather take a Beecham's powder than take tablets of them. I mean, some things don't even work on me.
Altogether, Weldon Action knocked on 400 doors in Edinburgh. We found 10 people taking large doses of aspirin and other over-the-counter analgesics every day without good medical reason.
We estimated this could mean that throughout Britain there are 250,000 people who are regular and heavy misusers of painkillers like aspirin.
We were alarmed at this possibility because these products are advertised widely on television and we might be persuading people to treat themselves unwisely.
We decided to check our findings, and together with the Proprietary Association of Great Britain, the organisation which represents the leading manufacturers of these household remedies, we commissioned a nationwide survey from National Opinion Poll.
Approximately 4.5 million people claim to take an analgesic about once a week or more often. About 1,200,000 people take these products every day, and 2/3 of these, about 800,000 people, take them every day without a prescription. There are about 500,000 people taking an average of over 5 tablets or powders every day. Nearly half of these, about 250,000 people, do so without a prescription.
The National Opinion Poll results confirm our alarming Edinburgh survey.
Weldon Action calculates that these 250,000 people are spending £2.5 million each year, 1/6 of the over-the-counter sales of these drugs. Professor McGregor.
When the Weldon Action team first came and told me that their preliminary survey suggested that up to 250,000 people might be taking aspirin and other painkillers every day without medical supervision, I found it difficult to believe. I've now seen the National Opinion Poll results, and I'm even more amazed, because this 250,000 only represents 1/3 of the 800,000 people in this country who are taking these drugs in some sort of quantity without medical supervision every day. The size of these figures is perhaps alarming, and should certainly be a matter of concern to us as doctors, to the pharmaceutical industry, to the Ministry of Health, and in particular to those people who are misusing these drugs in this way for so long.
A further matter for concern is that regular users of household remedies quite often don't realise that they do in fact contain aspirin.
Have you ever looked at the packet?
No.
Here you are, look at the packet.
Mrs. Moran, you'll remember, takes 4 Beecham's powders regularly every day.
Dad must have aspirin, but I never knew that.
78% of the people who took Beecham's powders regularly didn't know that it contained aspirin.
Aspro.
Could you tell me what's in Aspro?
I've got no idea, I'm afraid. I don't read the small print at the back of the packet.
56% of the people who took Aspro regularly didn't know that it contained aspirin.
Anodin.
Could you read out the contents of anodin?
There's more aspirin in it than anything else.
Does that surprise you at all?
Well, it surprised me, so I always thought they were different, anodin and aspirin.
58% of the people who took anodin regularly didn't know that it contained aspirin.
Alka-Seltzer.
Do you know what's in Alka-Seltzer?
Sodium bicarbonate. I don't know anything else that's in them.
Nothing else?
No.
90% of the people who took Alka-Seltzer regularly didn't know that it contained aspirin.
Considering the vast sales of aspirin, it must be a relatively safe drug. But this does not eliminate the possibility that some people may be suffering from the harmful effects of aspirin. In fact, no matter how safe the drug is, the more that's sold of it, the more people we can expect to find being made ill through taking it. This, of course, is a consequence of the ready availability of aspirin, not only in chemist shops, but also in supermarkets and the grocer.
Evidence from this part of the world suggests that in this country, about a quarter of the patients admitted to hospital vomiting blood, in about a quarter of them, aspirin has actually caused the bleed. In terms of a national figure, there are probably 28,000 patients admitted with vomiting blood per year in this country, and a quarter of this makes 7,000 per year due to aspirin. Most of these patients get better quite simply by blood transfusions, although this may use up 10 or 20,000 pints of blood per year. A small number, perhaps 100 to 300 per year, die in this country from the bleed that has been provoked by aspirin.
Now the little tube, I want you to swallow this, it'll slip down quite easily.
The man under examination here was seen earlier at the beginning of the programme. A tube is being passed down his throat so that the doctor can look into his stomach to try and find the cause of the bleeding.
Over 30 years ago, medical experts first began to report that ordinary aspirin irritated the walls of the stomach and caused bleeding. There have been many such reports since then.
But in a letter to a medical journal, the manufacturers of Disprin claimed that ordinary aspirin has yet to be proved conclusively to cause a dangerous level of bleeding. They also maintain that their product, which dissolves in water, is less likely to cause bleeding.
The manufacturers of Alka-Seltzer, which both dissolves in water and contains sodium bicarbonate as well as aspirin, have accumulated evidence that their product causes no significant level of bleeding at all.
Medical opinion is divided over the use of Alka-Seltzer for upset stomachs. Some would say that on balance it's safe to use it for this purpose. Others have reservations.
Alka-Seltzer is one of the safer of the many preparations which contain aspirin. Even so, it is perfectly possible for the susceptible individual to bleed after a single dose of Alka-Seltzer. It is often difficult to discover in a particular case whether aspirin has in fact been responsible for the bleeding or has merely been taken at some time preceding the bleeding.
This was exactly the position in this case. The patient was found to be suffering from a bleeding ulcer, but he believed it to be due to indigestion and had been taking aspirin occasionally and Alka-Seltzer regularly, not knowing that Alka-Seltzer also contained aspirin.
One of the difficulties in this case is that he's been taking aspirin for a long time, and why he should suddenly bleed is one of the things which is unexplained.
He seems to have had a stomach pain for which he's been taking Alka-Seltzer. Is this a wise self-medication?
Well, yes, in his case, it hardly amounted to pain. It was really discomfort when you go into it. And I think this is a bad thing to do.
But in fact, Alka-Seltzer is advertised for upset stomachs.
Yes, I think this is a mistake, and I would support the idea that perhaps now aspirin preparation should have a comment on the outside that it's inadvisable to take them except for pain, except for pain which isn't persistent, and that it should never be taken. They should never be taken for indigestion.
The last report of the Government Committee on Safety of Drugs had this to say about Alka-Seltzer and preparations like it. They said,
products of this kind should not be promoted for the relief of stomach disorders, including gastric upsets and heartburn.
Alka-Seltzer believes so strongly that this criticism is unfair that they've sent their evidence to the Medicines Commission, which recently took over from the previous committee. The Commission began considering this evidence today.
People who use aspirin every day run a very considerable risk of damaging their health. This should not be done under any circumstances, unless you should be suffering from rheumatoid arthritis and are under constant medical supervision. About 1 in 10 of people who take aspirin regularly and heavily every day may lose some blood through their bowels. If this condition continues for a long time, it may result in chronic iron deficiency anemia.
Unless I was driving myself to go all the time, I just wanted to go to sleep.
And this all cleared up with treatment with the iron?
This cleared up very well with treatment.
And you weren't aware that the aspirin was causing you any disturbance?
Oh, no.
We have made a recent study of 150 patients with iron deficiency who were admitted to hospital with this anemia, and in them 9 patients were thought to have aspirin ingestion as the main cause of their anemia. That is 6% of hospital patients admitted with iron deficiency.
It first started when I sort of had headaches and things, so I started taking Beecham's powders, and then I gradually started taking 4 a day, and then I gradually got tired, and I couldn't, my legs swelled, and every time I sat down I fell asleep. But I still kept taking them because I thought they bucked me up, you see. Every time I took one I thought, oh, they're bucking me up more. Well, in the end I just had to go to the doctor because my legs ached so much I just couldn't stand on them.
Would you say the number of people in Britain with anemia associated with aspirin would be in terms of hundreds?
Oh, definitely, but I wouldn't like to hazard a guess in actual numbers.
Would you say it could be thousands?
I should think so, yes. If one takes a figure of 6% of patients who are admitted to hospital with iron deficiency, it probably is of the order of thousands.
People who take aspirin occasionally to relieve a headache or to make them more comfortable if they have a cold or flu have no occasion to worry. We're really concerned with the people who take aspirin regularly and in large quantities without medical supervision.
Some tablets you can buy in shops and which contain aspirin also contain another drug called phenacetin.
This drug has been banned by many manufacturers of painkillers because of the fear that widespread misuse of it was causing kidney damage.
But phenacetin still continues to be available in unbranded tablets which can be bought at the chemist, even though they aren't advertised for sale to the public.
Codeine compound contains phenacetin and aspirin as well as codeine, and these tablets labelled APC contain caffeine, aspirin and phenacetin.
Preparations like compound codeine and APC tablets, which both contain phenacetin and aspirin, may cause damage to the kidneys with prolonged use.
It is the continued ingestion of these large amounts of phenacetin which is causing a great deal of kidney damage in the country. If you work out from our small hospital, 16 patients in 5 years, if you work this out to the whole country, it comes to an incidence, and this is putting it very conservatively, of about 500 patients per year, new ones, suffering from kidney damage from long-term ingestion of phenacetin.
Will any of those patients die?
How many will die is very difficult to know, but I would say it's something like 200, 400 probably will die. And remember, my figure of 500 per year is very low.
As knowledge spreads about the dangers that aspirin might have for people particularly sensitive to it, both doctors and the public are turning to a substitute painkiller, paracetamol.
This is sold over the counter as unbranded paracetamol and brands like Panadol, Hedex, Panets and Lemsip.
But a curious and alarming fact about paracetamol is that if it is abused regularly and heavily, it might in fact have almost the same effect as phenacetin.
Now, paracetamol is the drug into which phenacetin is turned in the body. And within 2 hours of ingesting phenacetin, it is all turned into paracetamol, and is then excreted through your kidneys as paracetamol. I can see no logical reason, therefore, for thinking that paracetamol is going to be anything different from phenacetin in causing renal kidney damage. So far, of course, there are not many reports, though there are some, of kidney damage due to paracetamol. I think the main reason that there haven't been many reports is that it hasn't been used for very long. And I must emphasize it is the continued ingestion in large amounts of phenacetin or paracetamol containing drugs which causes kidney damage. It's not the occasional use for headache.
And as far as kidney damage is concerned, it isn't possible to exclude aspirin, because there may well be a proportion of patients whose kidneys are particularly sensitive to aspirin. And if they take aspirin for a long time, it may well be that their kidneys become damaged. There is, however, a large group of patients who are required to take aspirin in large doses for a very long time. These are the patients who suffer from arthritis, and for them, aspirin is probably one of the safest drugs available.
I'm talking about a population of people who are under continuous medical supervision. And I think this is really what matters. We have our patients regularly up for blood checks and check of renal function. And naturally, if we see any signs of damage at the very earliest stage, we can withdraw that particular drug, if it's aspirin, and the renal lesion recovers. This is not a permanent form of damage if the drug is withdrawn. But on the other hand, people taking large doses of mixtures, which they often do, and not report to their own doctor at all, then I think this group of people is definitely at risk, and they should be warned of these dangers.
Aspirin, paracetamol, phenacetin. They can all have their dangers if used unwisely or too frequently and in large amounts. Since these drugs are advertised widely in the press and on television, we felt we should get an independent view of the way they're sold to the public.
The expert medical panel of the Consumers Association have often published criticism about the advertising and packaging of home remedies. We invited their comments for this programme.
We have concluded that there is too little information given on how to use these valuable over-the-counter drugs safely and effectively. And we have these particular criticisms and recommendations to make on their advertising and labelling. Some of the containers give familiar drugs unfamiliar names. Lemsip, for example, calls paracetamol acetaminophen. Other packets tuck the drug name away in an obscure corner or in small type. And if you look at the advertisements, you'll see that many of them don't give any clue what the main active ingredient is. You may be told what isn't in the packet, but you still don't really know what drug you are buying.
The panel recommended that all press and TV advertisements, as well as containers, should name the main active ingredient clearly and prominently using simple names like aspirin and paracetamol.
Many preparations are nothing like explicit or detailed enough in their warnings. For example, no aspirin preparation warns you that you should avoid it if you have a stomach complaint. Few tell you, as clearly as they should, not to take the stuff frequently or continuously without medical advice.
The panel recommended that where a drug is unsuitable for a particular group of people, it should carry a clear, easily understood warning, either in the instructions or on the packet. This should apply to unbranded preparations as well as to the popularly advertised brands.
The decision about whether criticisms like these are right or wrong are being considered by the Medicines Commission, formed 3 years ago under the Medicines Act and provided with powers to advise on the regulation of advertisements, including
securing that adequate information is given with respect to medicinal products.
The Medicines Commission was also provided with powers to advise on the regulation of packaging and labelling, including
securing that any appropriate warning or other appropriate information or instruction is given.
The issues involved are complicated, and it's not yet known when the Medicines Commission will report on their recommendations for advertising and packaging.
Finally, Stanley Day, chairman of the Proprietary Association of Great Britain, representing manufacturers of branded drugs.
We're concerned, like others in this programme, about people who may abuse aspirin by taking very heavy doses for a long time without medical supervision. All our products are properly labelled according to official requirements with a declaration of the active ingredients. Those containing aspirin specify aspirin. Appropriate dosages are stated on every label with advice that the doses should not be exceeded except on a doctor's instructions. All our television advertisements are fully approved in advance by the Independent Television Authority's medical panel of experts. We agree entirely with Professor McGregor's reassurance that those people who take aspirin occasionally to relieve a headache or to make them more comfortable if they have a cold or flu have no cause for worry.